have a view that Uttar Pradesh needs Yogi ji for 10 more years as a Prime Minister. One of the possible candidates could be Jaishankar ji.
Will he resign that post or will he leave that throne? That is what the $1,000,000 question is.
PM from Tamil Nadu is different. Tamil Nadu based PM is different, and someone born at Tamil Nadu and becoming a PM is a separate. The Bharatiya economy is based on 65 to 70% of domestic consumption. The Middle East has crude oil for the next max 20-25 years. That is the stock they have. As I had already predicted, many banks will wrap up in the West. A lot of collaboration that will be increasing with the West in terms of defense and tech. With Russia, it is going to flip.
Okay.
And you are going to go for more of a non-defense trade. Have some patience. Give some time to the rest of the world to understand that a new power has arrived on stage. The parents and the families need to be aware of this kind of dangers. And this will happen for the starting 1.5 to 2 years that
Namaste and a very warm welcome to the Nationalist Madrasi. This is Intellectual Exchange with me, Sri Dharmaraghavan. In today's episode of the Intellectual Exchange, we are joined by a very special guest, and Dr. Ankit Shah is joining with us. And Namaste, Ankit ji. Thank you so much. And I hope this is a very long pending for us, and we planned it in online. And then, I wanted to do it in a pure offline mode as well. So thank you so much. And so, how is Delhi, by the way, firstly?
So coming to Delhi, I mean the visits are increasing, and it's always a pleasure to know a little bit on how the central government functions or the kind of vision that they have, and we look forward to continuation of this kind of a nationalist government in the upcoming elections as well.
That's great. Dr. Shah is, rather than a professor, he's more of an astrologer, I would say, because his prediction won't go wrong. Like, predictions are generally people who predict more things, but more or less, like, he predicts the minute things within the minute, and like, let's say macro or macroeconomics to the macro global level politics as well. So Shah, like, I'll start by asking you what is your prediction on the 2024 elections? Will BJP or the NDA will have a clean sweep, or many predictions say that BJP will go up to 300 plus and NDA will go 350 plus. What's your say on that?
I predicted, I think 1.5 years back, that you'll have 350 plus in this election. So I have no doubt about the 2024 central elections at all, because the way the team has functioned, the central government team. In fact, after 1,000 years, you have got such a strong team. So the people look forward to the Prime Minister and his leadership, the entire team. And I have absolutely no doubt for the 2024 central elections. You have no option.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about this NDA alliance? Will they pose a threat to this NDA or BJP?
Well, in that alliance, I do not see any kind of a concrete leadership coming up where there will be a consolidation of multiple parties, or there will be a consolidation on uniformity of what they want to achieve for the nation. I don't see any clear vision coming from the IN.DI, whatever that they have made. So I'm very doubtful that they would be successful in posing any kind of a challenge to this government. I'm not sure.
Ankit, like many of them have been posting that in 2026 Modi will be giving this stature of the prime ministership to the other one, or he will choose his successor, and we don't know who that is. And so, what is your prediction on that? So, will Modi ji continue till 2029? Will he complete the 15 years term? Because he was there for the past 10 years as a prime minister, and he's facing the election, facing himself as well. So, what will be the phase, or what will be the value of the prime minister in 2024, or will he continue till 2029?
See, there are multiple factors in this question. Um, in global geopolitics, there were two important turning points. One was when the Prime Minister was denied a US visa. That was a big turning point. The very same day, he took a vow that he will line up the West for visas. And he repeated that in the 2014 that Aapki Adalat episode as well. And we are seeing some signals of that coming to fruition very soon. Second turning point was when you saw the Russian president signing president for life, Xi Jinping signing president for life, and the Bharatiya Prime Minister in the same time window said that the period between 2014 to 2029 is a very important period for Bharat. So these are the two important turning events in geopolitics, where you are assuring your people and giving a messaging to the rest of the world that there is going to be a continuation of strong political stability in the nation in terms of leadership. So, what that translates into is because we all know that BJP has this 75 years of self limit that they have created.
That is what Narendra Modi and Amit Shah created, we can say.
That is what is created. But do understand one thing, that when you have a big geopolitical stature as a nation, where multiple nations are looking up to you for leadership in many, many different ways, be it the Middle East, be it the Western allies, be it European nations, all the strategic partners. I see that if the Prime Minister is satisfied that the speed of reforms are moving in correct pace, he might, in the middle of the term, pass on the baton of leadership.
Okay.
But if he is not satisfied with the pace of reforms and the goals that he has for the nation, then he might continue till 2029.
The question arises when the candidate or the prime minister is not performing, or he is not wealthy, or he is not active in the day-to-day the government process or in day-to-day life as well. But we can see that prime minister is super active and super healthy, and
He can beat both of us.
Yeah, and he is traveling like anything and doing the works, and still for this 5 state election also he has been campaigning in all the states, including Mizoram and each and every part of the country. But what can we can we pose a complaint that okay, Narendra Modi ji, like you have worked many too much for us, and take some rest for us. Will there be some kind of that kind of a soft corner towards him, or like as you said, like if he is not satisfied with the reforms? And he said recently in a speech, he said in my third term Bharat will become the third largest economy in the world as well. So, what is your take on that, Ankit ji?
See, from what I am seeing, I understand that the role of geopolitical stature of Bharat has increased multifold. And in this kind of a scenario where you have the next plans for the next 25-30 years planned intricately, I see that one of the possible candidates could be Jaishankar ji. That is one of the possibility.
As a prime minister?
As a prime minister. Because to understand and to achieve those kind of geopolitical goals, and we have to understand that whenever we have this kind of a strong leadership in the nation, the leadership would want the legacy to continue and the policy not being revised midway. when you have goals for next 25-30 years to be achieved. So I see Jai Shankar ji as one of the probable candidates mid-term in case the Prime Minister decides to take a out from the active.
Now the point is like, will the Prime Minister decide? Because Prime Minister Modi is a man of surprises. Like whatever we expect, and he will do the the opposite or the ulta way, as we see in the past record of the Prime Minister as well. So will he actually leave this throne? Because like he has won 2014 elections on his own. Like because his face was there, and in 2019 also, in 2024 also, it is going to be the same with some additional powers like Amit Shah and Jai Shankar, as we say. But will he resign that post, or will he leave that throne? That is what the $1 million question is.
The question is not whether the Prime Minister would leave the position. The question is who will fit in the shoes and how fast that deserving candidate will come up with that kind of a aura and that kind of a vision, kind of a thing.
Okay.
So if he sees someone is going to fit in the bill perfectly and continue the legacy, then I think he will be comfortable enough to leave the post.
Got it. So as you mentioned, Mr. Jai Shankar, so I would like to ask you about Mr. Amit Shah and Mr. Yogi Adityanath, and to an extent, some even say that Himanta Biswa Sharma or Devendra Fadnavis, because these are the phases of the BJP in different parts of the country as well. Yogi in UP, Devendra Fadnavis in Maharashtra. In Northeast, we have Himanta Biswa Sharma. So we'll go up one by one. Like, how do you think like Amit Shah would be in politics in after, let's say, 4 or 5 years, Ankit?
See, I see Amit Shah ji continuing in the Home Ministry position because that's a very important portfolio, and we as a nation need a strong man in that post. So I see a continuation of him in that position, but of course he is also one of the possible candidates for the Prime Minister position.
Okay.
So that is something for the party to decide. But we would need a strong Home Minister as well, because we have seen the Prime Minister having, handling an extra foreign policy stuff along with the national politics, right? So the Prime Minister position does have some portion of foreign policy thing which he has taken on his shoulders, and which will obviously naturally come to the next Prime Minister as well. So we would need some strong Home Minister as well to look after the internal functioning of the party and look after the internal functioning of the Home Ministry department.
Okay, got it. So, what is your prediction on Mr. Yogi Adityanath? Because he's the longest serving Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, if I'm not wrong, and he is the potential candidate for the Prime Minister as well, and he is somewhat not secular or liberal or so. He is pure Hindutvavadi, and he is so like one step ahead of Modi in terms of Hindutva and his ideology, I would say. So what is your take on Yogi Adityanath ji?
I would differ a bit here in the sense when you say one step ahead in Hindutva than Modi ji or Shah. I would differ a bit over there, because as a person in Gujarat, I have seen how Gujarat was governed. So to say that one of the candidate is more towards Hindutva, I think that would be an error.
Okay.
Because my understanding is that the Prime Minister might not be as much vocal, but he is as much a planner and a strategist in terms of what you call as coming back to the cultural roots of this country. Yogi ji, certainly we all look up to him, and certainly one of the possible candidates. But I also have a view that, again, as I said about the Home Ministry, I have a view that Uttar Pradesh needs Yogi ji for 10 more years.
Okay.
Because understand, Uttar Pradesh population size is big enough. You also got to understand that Yogi ji got the state in a minus position in terms of development, law and order and stuff like that. So to make Uttar Pradesh model to be, thrown out and shown to the world that this is the model state, I think that will take some years.
No, got it, purely got it. So, any other possible phases for the future of BJP or like
Well, we know, I mean, they are
Mhm.
grooming the tier 2 and tier 3 as well. Himanta Baswa doing equally good. You're seeing Annamalai coming from the south, equally good. So you're seeing lot many. I mean, the grooming has really increased in this leadership, which was one of the pointers which the opposition party said that there is no grooming going on in the BJP.
Okay.
So I really reject that idea because I see a lot of grooming is going on. And you've already seen Amit Shah giving a statement that there has to be a PM from the
So,
south, right?
so,
So
time has to say that who is going to be our either you would have mentioned Annamalai ji also. So
not
let's
probably the immediate one, but certainly one of the potential contenders. Uh, and then you got to understand PM from Tamil Nadu is different. Tamil Nadu based PM is different. And someone born at Tamil Nadu and becoming a PM is a separate thing.
got it.
All three are different.
Got it.
And you have multiple candidates like Jaishankar ji is a Tamil.
Exactly.
But then he has a Delhi base, right? Similarly, but Annamalai has a pure Tamil Nadu base. So all these are potential contenders.
So let's wait for that time. So the Prime Minister is from South, as you said. So Ankit ji, let's move on to the 5 state elections. I'll come back in some time. So let's have some views on the geopolitics as well. So in this era, like we have been talking to both Israel and Palestine, or to both Russia and Ukraine as well. So how do you see the space of Bharat in today's geopolitics, or in the today's the new world order, I would say?
The Indian Ocean or the Bharatiya Mahasagar has always been the pivot of global economics. This is true for all the thousands of years of human history. So there is no change in that. Once again, you will find after 400 years, all of these people coming back to Bharat to seek what knowledge is. Now, the last time the intentions were to, dominate and loot, and we have seen that entire colonialism era. But this time, they are coming with education campuses, right? So there is a good possibility of an export of Sanatan wisdom back from the same campuses to the rest of the world. So this time, not just investments are coming, but investments are coming in a way where they are seeking an accommodation in the Bharatiya economy for more of like a survival kind rather than the domination objective with which they came 400 years back.
Okay. So, since you touched the word economy, so how the every strongest economy, right, from US, the banks have been failing. So, how did the US economy fail and the Bharat's economy survive? Because like we are the fastest growing economy after since ever since the COVID has appeared, and we have been having the positive growth rate from 2022, if I'm not wrong, after the first wave or second wave, so called second wave. So, what is your take on how did Bharat emerge as the fastest growing economy? And as Prime Minister said, like will be the economic Vishwaguru as well, and he said we'll be the third largest economy in his third term. So, what are your predictions and what are the challenges for the Indian economy, Ankit?
The Bharatiya economy is based on 65 to 70% of domestic consumption. So it got nothing to do what happens with the rest of the world. I mean, 60 to 65% you are completely isolated from the effects of what happens in the rest of the world, because that much of consumption demand you already have. Right? We are not an export oriented model economy like the Chinese. Now, when you have an export oriented economy, whatever happens in the rest of the world is immediately going to impact you. So that is not our case. Second thing why we sustained ourselves in economics is because during this era of from 1971, the dollarization process that happened in the last 50 years, we still maintained the unorganized rural sector of self-employment and entrepreneurship model. I mean, if you look out from the total Bharatiya population, what percentage is in the services sector, in the job model? It is still less compared to the rest of the world. Even in terms of stock market, the kind of stock market capitalization which rest of the world has, we do not have that much of percentage of population participating in the stock market capitalization. And stock market capitalization is a proof of how much unproductive your population is, because stock market activities are not wealth creation, that is wealth transfer. It is not a pure form of wealth generation economic activity. So because that we still have people who want to do some real productivity, real production, real services, that the economy has survived and passed on through this last 50 years of domination of single country reserve currency hegemony. As long as the rest of the world is concerned, that this concept that you can survive by investing in someone else's business. Now what happens when you look at the whole population of the world, what happened in the last 50 years, the population which wants to survive by investing in someone else's business, wants to be rich just because they were rich. That population increased than the population which used to do real productivity. This is exactly what happened with the Western economies.
Okay.
So how long can you just invest in someone else's business and make profits? And what happens when these entire generations become unproductive?
Got it.
You are doing nothing real.
Okay.
Just wealth transfer, moving on.
Got it.
So this is what the Western economy is facing.
Got it. Since we are talking about the economy, I want to bring in the oil and the future of oil as well. Times there were India have been waiting for the nations to give us oil, and still we don't have an oil reserves as well, and still we are building up the reserves in 6 parts of India as well. So what is the future of oil, Ankit? The Uttar Pradesh government is freely promoting the electronics vehicles as well. So what is the future of oil, and will India promote the e-vehicles, and will there be a future for the e-vehicles?
See, one thing that is very clear is that the Middle East has crude oil for the next max 20-25 years. That is the stock they have. And obviously, multiple countries trying to discover crude oil reserves. But there is an urgency of moving out from the crude oil economy for the Middle East and also for the rest of the world, that they have to discover now how to operate a post-crude oil world. So all the countries are trying to run innovations and discoveries, be it hydrogen, be it solar, wind, right? Nuclear as well. One of the cleanest method being nuclear. So multiple experiments are running, and we have our Gadkari ji who said zero oil imports, right? Zero fuel imports. So he is running with that goal. So I'm sure there must be some concrete concrete stuff going on. And in fact, by the way, IIT Madras has a very big role in terms of path-breaking innovations in terms of many dimensions. Exactly. Be it technology, be it defense.
From 5G to everything.
Many of things.
Okay.
So, that's certainly a need that the youngsters from all IITs get a specific list of demands regarding what are the strategic needs of the nation. And I'm sure they can deliver as well. So, because a lot of stuff will become indigenous going forward, because in geoeconomics, whenever a financial crisis arrives and you are looking towards a financial reset, during that period of churn, there will be a sense of extreme protectionism that will come in terms of multilateral behavior of nations, which means you cannot rely on critical things for the outside world. every nation has learned this lesson during COVID.
So let's talk about some war zones area which is happening now. I'll start from Gaza and Israel. Have you predicted that Israel will go on a full-fledged war with Hamas and so and so? And what will be the future of Israel politics? Because there has been a coalition government which is happening, and so what will be the future of Israel, because they have not negotiated with terrorists, if I'm not wrong. Like they go on a war right from this Munich
They don't
Olympic
believe in
revenge, or
negotiation.
yeah, and so many reasons. So what will be the future of Israel after this post war with Hamas and Kitchi?
You have only two things in this world. One is Jammu and second is Jerusalem. The Jammu belt gave you Sanatan and Sikhism on the Indus belt, and it gave you Buddhism and Jainism on the Ganga portion. Similarly, Jerusalem gave two religions. What happened in Saudi Arabia was a concoction of desert practices and Abrahamic thought process doctrinalized as a religion.
Okay.
Now, you got to understand that Israel will meet India in Saudi Arabia, because from the point of origin of such theologies, at least two need to come out, and that is what not has happened in Saudi Arabia, which is why I gave those predictions, I think 1.5 to 2 years back, that Saudi Arabia will be a Jewish majority,
Okay.
Iran will be a Christian majority, and UAE will be a Hindu majority. So I see Saudi Arabia as a melting pot where Jammu meets Jerusalem.
Mm.
And this was what was very natural. And if you have watched the number of MOUs that were signed when Crown Prince MBS was here for a state visit after the G20 summit, one of the most important one that was signed was full access of the National Archives of Saudi Arabia and Bharat. So it needs to come out in this decolonization process about their ancient Bharatiya
Yeah, he is
roots.
somewhat having a reformist mindset rather than the other Islamic leaders of the nation as well, and he has included Ramayana and Mahabharata in the schools, if I'm not wrong. So, can MBS change this view, as you said?
Well, he is on this path of reformation. It is going to be painful from within that society, because there will be clashes as well internal, in terms of some of those radical clerics who would not be able to digest the kind of changes coming in. So I see, once Israel is cleaning up the internal Hamas mess that he has, the next one after a little gap would be Iran denuclearization process, because I had given that prediction as well. And after that, the only nation that can help Saudi Arabia in this de-radicalization process in terms of not just defense and intel sharing, but also in terms of policy recommendations, I think that is Israel.
Okay.
Which is why I say that, and also they do have their ancient connectivity with the Jewish population, which is why I said that it will become a Jewish majority by 2040.
Okay, got it. So let's talk about US, your favorite area as well. So, how are you predicting US 2024 elections, and KG? Because it is very crucial for America and for the world also. And so, how are you seeing the present government, which is there, that is the Biden government, and will there be a regimal change in 2024, or will the Democrats win the election again?
If you notice the Trump regime, my observation was everyone around him just said yes sir, and implemented absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So my view is that when you have vested interest surrounding you from all sides, and the governance have a big influence of what private sector uh, you know inclinations are, then it is very difficult to have a nationalist kind of policies or stand that you can take, which is why I believe that it doesn't matter who comes to power
Okay.
in the West. Now, as long as what you said, the position of the US economy, we are already seeing lot many of defaults. And I had predicted this 7 days before President Biden took oath, that this is the sequence in which it is going to go.
Yeah.
So, very obvious that we are seeing a lot many of credit card delinquencies. We are seeing defaults and bankruptcies. There will be a lot of problem with the banking sector and the IT sector, because both of them very near to the Federal Reserve printing machine, which is now almost coming to an end in terms of endless printing that they used to do for last 2-3 decades, which is why I see a massive impact on the IT sector and the banking sector in the West. So you shouldn't be surprised. There are three factions. If I'm to give you a understanding, there are three factions in the American society. One is the section of people who are reliant on credit card debt, which is they are going to face immediate impact because as soon as the interest rate goes up. So we're already seeing that. Second section of the society, the private sector. All these private sector companies had taken loans during COVID time in 1 to 2% rates, and their 3-year cycle is coming to an end in the next quarter, which means all of these will come for a rollover to their banks.
Okay.
And the critical condition in which the banks are right now, that will be the same quarter in which they also need refinancing from the Federal Reserve. And those rates are also not good enough. So I'm seeing a lot many, as I had already predicted, lot many banks will wrap up in the West.
Got it. So, this concept of superpower, America, as we came to know the word of superpower from America, but is America or the USA a superpower right now or in the regime of 2024? So, is America the superpower as it was before, or will it reclaim at some point of time? What is your take on that, Ankitji?
Well, the concept of superpower, one of the important element is where is your first line of defense. If the maximum distance from your homeland, your first line of defense is, that represents the superpower status. So if you are able to provide net security in a region much away from your mainland, that shows superpower status.
Okay.
And I believe that after the great financial reset which is coming, I have a serious doubt about the continuation of social benefits and also the massive defense budget which US used to have in the last 3 decades. So that will be an economic curb on that superpower status. This is what I'm seeing. And you are already seeing some signals where you see I2U2 was created in the Middle East, where now the Middle East countries are also saying that, oh no, we need to develop our own indigenous defense stuff. They are looking at cooperation with Bharat. Bharat is also looking for accommodation of lot many of Western defense companies. If they can put up bases here, do tech transfer, and we can do joint production, eventually we can export it out to the lot of the partners in the Bharatiya Mahasagar region. So I see a lot of collaboration that will be increasing with the West in terms of defense and tech. And with Russia, it is going to flip.
Okay.
And you are going to go for more of a non-defense trade.
With Russia.
Because Russia will now be the richest country in the world.
Okay.
In terms of, it already is
weapons and other things.
It already is in terms of massive natural resources. It has a massive, in terms of commodities, it's the richest country in the world already. Now, it's only about the financial reset of how the currencies are going to operate in the multipolar world. You will find that because, as I said, in the Arctic will melt, a huge treasure coming from there, and the entire new sea lanes, because of that Arctic melting, that will also be dominated by the Russian military.
Okay.
So it's going to be a massive economic giant in terms of GDP or whatever that productivity is.
Okay. So, will there be any challenges for the US in post 2024, or let's say after the elections, or what will be the stance of the India US bilateral relations or the foreign policy as well? Because, like, nowadays, like, we can see more than Moscow, Washington is very close with India. And so, how do you see this? Because, like, this is somewhat a kind of a shift, we can say. So, how do you see this, Ankitji?
Well, you got to understand that in a multipolar world, each big power is going to have its own sphere of influence carved out. Now, when we shift from a unipolar to a multipolar world, and as I said, that there will be economic constraints to the superpower status, what happens is the American sphere of influence would be Canada, Mexico, and the South American continent. That will be their sphere, primary sphere of influence. So, in terms of economics, we will see a lot of collaboration, as I said, in the tech and defense sector. Lot of Western companies who would like to survive in the post-reset world have already started shifting their bases here, shifting their operations here. And by 2030, I see a lot of top management converting from a white to an NRI and from an NRI to a resident Bharatiya. This is what I look at in terms of all major Western companies who have bases right now over there. So you shouldn't be surprised if Delhi is, after post this decade, able to call the shots in many of the Western capitals, because the top management of the Western companies would be a resident Bharatiya.
Got it, got it, got it. So, Ankitji, like, let's touch upon Canada as well. So, we have been seeing what is happening between India and Canada, and there has been statements from the Justin Trudeau, the man himself, and so, so how do you see this kinds of a statement and where it is leading actually?
Well, you need to know that as soon as this episode happened, after a few days, you are seeing a lot of US based universities sitting with our team and planning out campuses in Bharat. Now, you know that the relations are now in a difficult position with Canada. The Canadian education sector will face some hit in terms of, because there will be concerns. We already know there are security concerns for Bharatiya. Why would students go over there if there are security concerns? So I do believe that a lot of education sector admissions which were happening from here would be curtailed, the parents, because certainly they would be concerned in terms of worsening relations as well. So I do believe that the Canadian economy will face a hit as well.
Okay.
Because these admissions from Bharat, if they are completely cut off, within 2 years half of the education institutes would shut down.
Got it.
And a lot of gig economy of Canada depends on that. A lot of real estate depends on those admissions as well, because despite the fact that there are Chinese owners of this real estate in Canada, the renters are Bharatiyas.
Okay.
So when you don't get those supplies of people coming in, the real estate will be hit as well.
Okay.
So you're already seeing, as I had predicted, that a lot of farm imports that we were doing from Canada will be hit. And this was very natural because not just Justin Trudeau government, but a lot of his diplomats, I believe, were also involved in funding the farm protests in Bharat. Bharat will put out in front of the world that these were the diplomats who were involved in farm protest funding and stuff like that in here.
Got it, got it. And there has been an increasing support from the opposition parties of the Canadian politics as well. And Canada is yet to have the elections in 2025, if I'm not wrong. So, will there be a pro-Indian government in Canada after all these problems have been there? And Justin Trudeau has been facing such a humiliation in Canadian Parliament as well. So, what is your take on that?
Well, I believe that there was a pent up frustration in the Justin Trudeau government regarding, the previous visit to Bharat as well. According to their understanding, Bharat had not been that receptive, is what their understanding is. This time, G20 as well, there was a feeling that he was left out. Now, we got to understand that Canada is not that important a country in terms of geopolitics for Bharat, not important in terms of its economic size as well. And besides the fact that, as I said, that it falls into the US sphere of influence. So it doesn't matter much in terms of transactions or interactions between the two nations. But it certainly has a lot of natural resources. But as I said, it falls into the US sphere of influence. Okay. So nothing much to do with us. But at the end of this episode, what's going to happen is Bharat and US are going to laugh it out. And whatever little damage that is going to happen to Canada and Bangladesh.
Okay. Got it, got it. So let's talk about China and then come to the local things as well. So China, what is your view on China, Ankit? Because like they have been having the debt trap of some African countries, and we have also included the African Union into this G20+1 as well. And we have been we also have the increase in the influence in the African regions, and we are trying to get many peoples on board as well. And so what is the future of China, and in especially in the area of Africa, what will be the sphere of influence of both Bharat and China?
So we got to understand some of the developments that has happened. So you got to know in 1979 when Deng Xiaoping goes to President Carter, the deal is that you give technology, will kill our domestic consumption with a single child policy. So US gives technology, these people impose single child policy and finish off their local consumption. With the first de-dollarization that happened with the euro currency, 1999, the entire IT sector valuations lost 78%. And it caused a dot-com crash of 2002 because of that de-dollarization process. Now, since euro currency was launched and they said we are no more going to park our savings in the US treasury or the dollar, this angered with that, US brought China in the WTO and gave all the membership benefits. And then China became the manufacturing supplier for the rest of the world. Now what has happened in this process is 2018 was the first time when Bharat offered China that let's do yuan and rupee trade. At that point in time, Xi Jinping administration denied that offer. Post-COVID, they realized that after working for the rest of the world for 40 long years, they made only 3 trillion in reserves, $3 trillion. And the Americans got about 14 trillion of social benefits during COVID just by printing for free. I think that was the realization in the Xi Jinping administration. And he was, from beginning itself, he was against the export model. The previous first 2 terms as well, there was a clash between him and Li Keqiang faction. The Li Keqiang faction was a pro-export model connected with the Wall Street finance and the deep state in terms of trade economics, that everything will be produced in China and the funding will be from the printers of the West. So after the realization, there were only 2 pro-export guys in the Politburo. One was Wang and second was Li Keqiang. So both of them at the end of 2022 were removed from the Politburo. So Xi Jinping is now very clear that he does not want the exports to the West. Last 10 to 12 months, if you take out the data, he has diverted the exports that he was doing to EU and US to Southeast Asia and the Middle East. And they have oriented the Chinese citizens on their television that $100 note takes only 0.17 cents to print, and they are taking $100 worth of real goods from here and going. This is the orientation they gave to the Chinese people. So they are right after accepting this de-dollarization process, they are facing massive unemployment, which was very obvious. And Xi Jinping says, eat bitterness to his people. And he has given on the same Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, he has given some 10 new rules: eat Chinese food, wear Chinese clothes, travel to Chinese locations. So as we know that during this crisis period, there will be more and more protectionism. They have banned export of two important metals important for the semiconductor industry. We have banned wheat, rice, sugar, onion in process. Russia has banned the Ukraine grain deal, Black Sea, right? So messaging is going to the West that if you want real products, you need to have a currency which is backed by something finite, or at least a system, a new payment system where there could be a fair trade. This is the messaging which is going.
Got it.
So Chinese, coming back to that internal economics, now they want a reversal of that 1979. So single child policy already went, but there are still effects. People are habitual to that thing. So they have lost the birth rates. They want those birth rates back. Xi Jinping is saying the cultural revolution that we did, that needs to be reversed, which means the mandirs need to come up and the festivals need to come up back. We need to ignite the cycle of internal consumption. So from a pure export model coming back to the consumption based model.
Got it. So we have spoken more things about the world and the geopolitics. I'll finally come to an end by asking last 3 to 4 questions on the domestic level. So let's talk about the 5 state elections. Give us a predictions. The day we are recording is on 7th November. 2023. Most probably I'll post on 11th or the 10th or 11th of November actually. So what is your take on this 5 state election, Ankit ji?
Well, see, the state elections are neck to neck this time. I'm sure about a win in Rajasthan. Madhya Pradesh as well, we might sail through. So that might also be a win. But the rest of the ones are little neck to neck.
Okay. Chhattisgarh, you are predicting a neck to neck because like everyone is saying the Congress government is going to be repeating over there. So you are saying that is a neck to neck.
It's neck to neck as yet.
Okay. So there are chances for the BJP.
There are chances if some last moment magic happens. There is always this kind of a possibility.
Okay.
Right? But as you said, it's tough, Chhattisgarh. But Rajasthan looks clean to me.
Okay. Fine. And so what are the challenges for Bharat, I would say, or let's come to the BJP later. What are the challenges for Bharat? Like 2024 elections are on and we saw the n number of challenges which happened in 2019 as well. Or can we say that Bharat has become more stable rather than 2019 to 2024 what we have there at that point of time? So what are the challenges you are looking on for which is there for the Bharat, Ankit ji?
Before the elections is what you are talking.
For the elections and after the elections also.
Okay. So before the 2024 elections, I am seeing a lot of social media talks happening in terms of, some elements, Soros-backed factions doing, anti-Bharat stuff over here. Then some NGOs involved in protest finance, terror finance. You saw some minor blasts in the last 2-3 weeks. But the social media is talking too much hyper in terms of saying regime change and all. I don't believe in those kind of things. This country of 140 crore people, you will always have some or the minor incidents in some corners in the country. That does not amount to a massive revolution or a large scale protest or that kind of a thing. I mean, just look at the diversity that we have. Isn't that obvious that you will have some incident in some corner? Do not link that everything with central government or that somebody over here who will overpower us. I do not believe in this kind of crazy theories, which I don't know where it comes from. Somebody says Eric Garcetti. I mean, the day this guy landed, I said he's a very good guy and he knows what his role as a US ambassador, and he will professionally do it.
He is also mingling with our people and taking the
I
culture
don't,
forward.
I do not know where these theories came from. I mean, I am aware that Eric Garcetti was giving some statements back home when he was not here, but over here, he will follow his professional duties. I don't see he will. He's not that kind of a person who would fall in those kind of traps, and has already seen what we did with Canada. He has witnessed it. So this theories of Victoria Nuland is coming. This lady is a regime change. I am seriously not sure about what these people are talking.
Got it.
I don't see any kind of big things happening uh, like regime change and all that. I don't believe in these stories.
Okay. So, will there be any geopolitical challenges for us?
Before the elections?
Yeah.
Well, geopolitical, I mean, Qatar tried what it could. So there will be, see, understand, whenever a new power comes on stage, there will be little frustrations coming up. And this is a natural process. This is not something abnormal. So give the world have some patience, give some time to the rest of the world to understand that a new power has arrived on stage. Right? Canada has learnt a lesson. They learnt a nice lesson because you have diplomacy communication channels which are set. You should have used that. They did a childish behavior of going to the parliament and announcing stuffs like that, and they faced the repercussions. They never expected 41 diplomats will be fired. I think the signal has gone to the rest of the Western world as well, that this is not the Bharat that you were
Thinking about.
right? So and probably I'm sure all those embassies would have counted that they have more diplomats and I don't think they will like to take any kind of panga anymore. So Qatar, you can understand. Now Middle East is so interesting. Qatar and Iran, these two nations fundamentally considered less radical and more liberal. But as soon as Saudi Arabia and UAE took a 180 degree to a de-radicalization process, there is a sudden pent-up emotion in both these otherwise liberal countries, Qatar and Iran, that they need to now stand up for what they believe the religious doctrine is. So this is what has happened. Actually, it was there was a massive role of Saudi Arabia and UAE in radicalization of the Indian subcontinent and the Middle East, historically speaking. But now, since Saudi Arabia and UAE did a 180, these countries, Qatar and Iran, have suddenly become, oh no, I mean, what about our doctrine? So that is a change which has come. Okay. Now, in terms of challenges post 2024, you got to know that whenever money comes from outside, which is going to come in massive inflows, because rest of the world has aged, so they are going to invest their money in the working population. Okay, so you are going to have a massive inflow of money. So post 2024, The biggest challenge is whenever money comes, the ideology also walks in the shadow. You need to be very careful about what kind of ideologies are entering along with it, right? So a lot many of your education sector campuses will be targeted with a wokeism, gender doctrination kind of things, and the parents and the families need to be aware of this kind of dangers. And this will happen for the starting 1.5 to 2 years that this Western investment settle in Bharat. Once the investment settles, there are good chances that we will be able to pass on the Sanatan wisdom via them to the rest of the world. So if you have to manage, you have to learn to ride the lion. That is what I say.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. So I think from 2014 to 2023, Bharat has managed the internal security very well, and the bomb blast have been reduced to zero, I think, and the civilian deaths have been also reduced from the attack of terrorism. So, but Manipur came out of the syllabus, and that have been fueled, as we know, by some of the forces as well. What is your take on that, and will there be any problems in the internal security level?
So you got to understand that in Manipur there are multiple factors. One was a Christian missionary factor. Second was the linkage with some of the Myanmar antisocial elements. And third was about the drug cartel. Now, over the period, that this government is very keen to see a very strong northeast. Okay, so as they are trying to clean up the mess, the frustration built up in this local elements who were involved in this kind of drug business and stuff like that, conversion and things like that. So that reaction came out, okay, because of the actions that happened. And this is a natural process of cleanup. This is how it happens, okay, wherever you clean up. So I see eventually the Manipur situation will balance out. Some of the plugs that we need to do is we need to groom local leadership aligned to the nationalist theories. So if you have local leadership within the local communities in Manipur who are aligned to the nationalist thought process, this can be handled locally itself.
Okay.
Now, in terms of your question on internal security, understand Shastra is for internal security and Shastra is for external security. Shastra means your curriculum and your information outlets. So if these two are, and history of course, if these are not nationalist or a dharmic principle oriented, unfortunately you have to use Shastra on your own people. This is what we see in Kashmir. This is what we see in Kerala. This is what we see in Bengal. So if you rectify the education format, bring it to dharmic and Shastra principles, then nobody is brainwashed to go against the nation. Okay, but if you haven't done this, and if you have a wrong perception of history, unfortunately you have to use weapons which is for actually external security.
Okay. So thank you so much, Ankit ji, for joining with us, and so it's a pleasure always talking to you, and I can see the how much amount of knowledge you have invested in your tweets itself. So thank you so much. Enlighten us through your tweets and enlighten us through your knowledge as well. Thank you so much. I hope you should give regular interviews and podcasts to our nationalist Madrasi. Thank you so much, Ankit ji.
Jai Hind.